This is Bryce Van Patten of Metal Express Radio Backstage. Today my guests are Linc, Kalen, Drew, and hopefully Tom of the Australian progressive metal band The Stranger. Thanks for joining us. Could you all just say hello and tell us what you play?
Hi, my name's Kalen. I play guitar and I do some backing vocals as well.
Hi, I'm Drew, and I also play guitar and backing vocals live, I guess now. And I'm from The Stranger.
Yeah, and I'm Linc, and I play bass and nothing else.
Awesome. If you were asked by somebody who hadn't heard of your band, The Stranger, before, how would you guys describe the music?
It would probably be progressive metal is usually the very first term we throw out. The other thing that I like to say normally is that we like to do everything from the heavy stuff all the way through to the not heavy stuff, and we probably have a little something for everybody.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Sums it up.
Yeah.
Quite nicely, actually.
We're open to writing anything and playing anything, all within the umbrella term of progressive metal.
As long as it sounds good.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Who were some of your earliest musical influences of each of you guys?
Yeah, for sure. Kalen here. So I suppose my biggest influences when I began getting into the craft of writing music and all that sort of thing would be Opeth, and
Awesome.
I suppose Children of Bodom were a big one as well. Nightwish were a big one as well. But then a lot of earlier bands as well, such as, Dire Straits and Queen and all that kind of stuff. That was my childhood rearing.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Drew. I would almost have to copy and paste that initial answer that Kalen had. Opeth have also been an enormous influence on me. My playing and songwriting for many, many years now. But I feel like similar to everyone else in the band, we've all completely branched out and also come from, the influence of our parents' music tastes and all that kind of stuff. So similarly, I was brought up on Queen and Zeppelin, and then slowly morphed my personal tastes over my life, mainly being influenced by Opeth. And then throughout the last couple of years, artists like Anderson .Paak and Fleet Foxes have also been a huge influence. So there's been a very, very wide variety of influences there.
And Linc here, like Drew said, like parents listening to music, like Dad is a huge Rush head. So listening to that and then like branching out of Rush to things like more simpler like Iron Maiden and In Flames and stuff like that, and then gradually getting towards the more progressive side of things like Tesseract and Periphery more recently. Yeah, a bit of everything, bit of like Dire Straits in there, as Kalen said as well.
Awesome. So your video for the 11th Hour is out, and that has a strong message about climate change. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Kalen here. So the way that we like to describe 11th Hour, or the way I like to describe it at least, is it's sort of our first hippie protest song. We all feel pretty strongly about where the world is headed, and the way things currently are, it's a little bit of a bleak picture, obviously, depending on your outlook, but it's no secret to anyone that there are some really serious changes that have to be made in the way that, governments and corporations work together in order to actually build a sustainable future. And 11th Hour is very much us venting our frustration around just the absolute inability for governments, especially the Australian government, to make wise decisions based on the future and not based on short-term political gains or, lobbying and all that sort of thing. Like there's a real sense of frustration because there's a growing sense of urgency within our culture, within our civilization about what we need to do. And all the choices that seem to be made are all they're all just short term. And so we're at a stage now where things are reaching a bit of a fever pitch. And so, I suppose 11th Hour is really just us venting our frustration about that state of affairs.
Would you say that, some of the, I understand, I'm up in America, USA, and the West Coast, but I did see quite a bit about wildfires and things going on.
Oh,
recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Australia's, like a year ago or so, just over a year ago, nearly burnt to the frickin' ground. Like there was some, essentially what happened is that we had some massive funding cuts to some very important parts of the government that looked after things like backburning and conservation and all that sort of stuff, and massively reduced the amount of funding and staff to those areas. And so as a result, we didn't have nearly enough preparation for, Australian summers are pretty brutal. Like, they're very, very hot, very dry, very intense. And so when all the funding was cut, it just set us up for this massive disaster. And so massive parts of the East Coast burned. Tons of people lost their homes. A few people lost their lives. It really was literally just the result of politics, of selfish politics.
About the reaction from the actual, the cataclysmic events of, our prime minister goes on holiday.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it. He pissed off to Hawaii.
Absolutely. Our prime minister is considered a bit of a joke by a lot of people here. He's the nickname we have for him here in Australia is Scotty from marketing, because he's not like, no one really thinks of him as a serious prime minister. Like, he really is a bit of a joke, and he kind of sits like him, and not to get overly political in this interview, but the party that he represents is basically sitting in the back pocket of people like Rupert Murdoch and Gina Reinhardt, these mining moguls and media moguls and stuff. And so there's a lot of the choices you see them make are the result of those political allegiances rather than the actual benefit of the working class or the future of Australia. Right. So when he pissed off to Hawaii, like in the middle of Australia, like it was terrible, and it sort of really showed his true colors. So that's, and I mean, I know that you guys in the US probably have some probably pretty similar feelings about some of your politicians and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we had a failed game show host for 4 years.
Yeah.
That I can only wonder, what people in your country thought of that. And so the 11th hour, the video, you guys want to talk at all about the video, how you made it, or who directed it, or what else can you tell me about it? Because I thought it was a really great video.
Linc, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a big challenge. I originally had this idea. I think it was just a random shower thought of having Tom sitting on like two thrones, singing back to him.
Oh, is that Tom on the throne?
Yeah, that is Tom. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know who that was, an actor. Okay.
Yeah. We like to punish Tom in our music videos. If you've seen,
he did a good job.
For Solomon's Son, he gets like cut open on a doctor's table and shit. But he's super good at what he does in that sense. But we had our good friend Adrian Golby, who plays guitar in the band Kaleidoscope. He directs all the music videos.
Is Tom here?
Tom's here, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Tom from The Stranger. Hi, Tom. This is Bryce. How's it going?
Hi, Bryce. I'm really good, thanks. How are you, man?
Doing great. So they were just talking about how they got you to be in the video, and they like torturing you. So what do you have to say?
They love punishing me. It's great fun. I'm always up for a bit of torture, a bit of punishment. My favorite thing is waterboarding. That's what I'm into.
Tom, you know that deep down you deserve it. I think that's why you're into it.
Of course. It wouldn't be as authentic otherwise. No, it's just like we come up with these ideas, and like, I don't know, there's really no limit to like what we want to achieve, I guess, and we don't want to put a limit on like our performance and, the things we sacrifice, like general hygiene and cleanliness for these music videos. So yeah.
Covering Tom in glue and making him roll around in dirt for like 4 hours.
Yeah. It looks like you were wired to the chair as well, or?
I was bound to the chair a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Both chairs, they sort of bound me by my legs, my neck, my arms, whatever. Just to create that impression of like breaking away from it. It's good fun.
Tom did all of his own makeup and everything, so it was a very like in-house job. Apart from Adrian filming and editing and everything, we did everything else ourselves.
Yeah, it looks really slick. It looks really great. You guys have a new album you're working on called Kaleidoscope. So, okay, when can we expect the album? And could you talk a little bit about your process for writing and recording?
Absolutely, man. So the album is coming out at the beginning of April. we're releasing a couple more singles between now and then. So we've just released the first one, and we've got the next one coming out on the 26th of February. It is the title track for the album Kaleidoscope, and then we'll have one more single that'll drop right before the album at the beginning of April. The process for writing this stuff, generally with any of our songs, there's quite an incubation period for them. Some of them get done very quickly. Some of them take years to write. Like it's one of those things where inspiration is a very difficult thing to just sort of to sit down and force. You know what I mean? Like I've
turn off and on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've never sat down with the intention of writing something and had something good come out. It always sort of happens very naturally and organically when I'm playing or something. But generally the process that we go through is that I'll be just noodling here at home and I'll come up with something on the guitar that will allow me to sort of flesh it out into a song that I can take to the other guys, and we sort of work on it from there. And then Tom will go away and generally work out the broad strokes for the vocals, and then Tom and I will sort of sit down and hash that stuff out together. But on this new album, I'm happy to say that we've actually started having some more collaborative stuff going on. So one of the songs, the music was written entirely by Drew, and it's a freaking awesome song. I'm so happy with it, and I'm really happy with his writing style and what he's brought to the band. It's really cool because it's a very different sound to the stuff that I write, but it's still somehow is distinctly us. Like it doesn't sound like another band, which is really, really cool. And also Linc has been writing a ton, and he wrote the majority of another song on the album. So, and Linc comes in once again with a totally different way of writing, a different sound, a different feel, but somehow it still sounds like us. So I feel like we're in a place now where everybody in the band has their unique voice that they bring along, but everyone knows what we are about and has a really good sense of what's going to sound like a Stranger song and what isn't, which is really nice for me because having, I've typically written sort of most of the music up until this point, and having people that I believe in and trust to actually contribute in a really valuable way is really wonderful for me. So I'm enjoying that a lot.
Well, can I ask how long you guys have been working together as a band?
Yeah, so the band started around sort of 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. And we had an original lineup, which was myself, Tom, and Daniel on drums, who's still in the band. He's off on a Valentine's weekend with his girlfriend right now. And we had Ben Nolan on guitar and Brendan Blanchard on bass. And they were both really great dudes, but they just, they had family commitments and stuff. They couldn't hang on to it. But they played on the first album. And they sort of left around the time that we released the first album, and then we found Drew initially. And for a while, we were just a four-piece with we had bass on the backing tracks live. We eventually brought in Linc, who sort of completed the thing. So that was around. How long have you been in the band, Linc?
Almost 3 years now.
Yeah, so we've been the current lineup for about 3 years, and we definitely feel the most solid that we've ever felt in terms of, our shared commitment to this, our shared vision and work ethic and all that sort of stuff. We very much feel like a team now, which is really wonderful. So I think we're in a good place moving forward.
This is true. I'd also like to add that I feel like even though I joined the band, I think it's coming up to almost 5 years ago now, and Linc was almost 3 years ago, the alignment of our sound now with all the current members has only really come about in the bulk of the writing process for this album and the making of it, which has sort of been within the last 2 years.
18 months, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, year and a half, 2 years. So even though we've both, Linc and myself, have been in the band for a longer period than that, it's really bloomed over the last year and a half, 2 years to create the newest sound of The Stranger. We had, a really great relationship off the bat that developed with each new member, but the sound itself really, really grew with this new album.
So are you guys all in a room together, or are you guys on different audio connections? I'm just curious because, of course, here in America, a lot of bands are not even able to rehearse in the same space. And so how has COVID affected things in Australia and for you guys for the recording of the record?
Yeah, well, that's that's a very relevant question for so many people right now. And yeah, I mean, I think in Australia, and especially us here in Queensland, like all of us live in the same city. We're all in Brisbane, and none of us live more than sort of half an hour's drive from anyone else. So
Excellent.
we've still been meeting up, pretty regularly. There was a bit of a downturn throughout COVID, but we got really lucky in Queensland because basically as soon as the lockdown happened in March, Queensland closed its borders. We had very, very low cases here. There was a couple here and there. We had a couple of small scares, but for the most part, we were pretty safe. And there was a couple of months that was pretty difficult when businesses were all shut down and everything, but it really didn't last all that long. And it was, by sort of like June, July, August, for life for most people was more or less back to normal with just a few little tweaks. But yeah, nothing like it was in Victoria or anything like that, who had like serious lockdowns for, like quite draconian measures for quite a long time. So we were very lucky in that way. However, I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't sort of a difficult time with the recording of the album, because I basically spearhead the production of everything, and I engineered, produced, and mixed the album. We got it mastered by Ermin Hamidovic in Melbourne, who's mastered such people as Periphery and Animals as Leaders and Pliny and all these guys. He's an amazing mastering engineer, but I did everything else. But the really tricky thing was that throughout that whole first half of the year, because my main job is I produce bands, and I had bands in the studio and they all had to pull out because of COVID. So I was driving Uber to like pay my bills. And, no one was getting lifts because it was lockdown. And so I was working like 12-hour days, making bugger all money. And then I'd have to come home and track guitars for 6 hours and just do this on repeat for months. And so it was a very stressful time. But, we managed to get it done. And luckily everyone brought their A game. So I was really happy to see that we weren't sort of, because I had such limited time to be there and to produce this, having everyone bring their A game really helped me out, because it meant that we didn't have to like just waste time, doing takes over and over and over and over and over. So it was really good. I was very proud of all the guys, and I was very happy with how it came together.
So is live music still going there? Because of course in the United States there is no live music allowed.
It's Linc here. It's kind of just started up completely again. Like there was a festival, kind of like the first festival back in Brisbane yesterday, which is like, it's huge news. But we played a show in September. I think we played another one in October, and they were like the only shows we played last year, apart from some at the start of the year. So there's been shows going on since around, I think, August, but they've been half capacities at the venues. So you do like a half show where you've got half the capacity, and then another show a couple of hours later where the other half of the capacity turns up, and that means you got to play two shows back to back.
Yeah.
And we did that a few times, and it was so exhausting.
I can imagine.
Our philosophy is sort of like, I guess, we just trying to keep the ball rolling despite all of this crap. Like we've had really good luck with our management as well. Like they're never just going to sort of throw their hands up in the air and go, oh, I don't know what to do now with this COVID shit. Like everybody's sort of just been like, all right, well, this thing gets cancelled, bummer. But that means that we have all these other opportunities later on down the track and down the year, and we just keep booking shows and getting ready for when it all does go away. And we've had plenty of shows cancel on us, but like it's still the mindset of like, we want to be out there, we want to do this, we'll take any chance that we get, sort of thing. And it's not like it's gonna let it ruin our like musical ambition, I guess.
Yeah, that's one of the really interesting things about the management side is we only got our management deals and record deals and stuff during COVID, so we haven't actually experienced what it's like in a quote unquote normal sense. So it's how well they're doing with us now, or how well we feel they're doing. We haven't experienced that at full capacity, so we're so keen for when everything returns to whatever normal means.
Yeah, that was my one of my next questions was that you guys do have a new label, and is it Octane Records and Wild Thing Records?
Yeah, that's right. Octane is a label that we've sort of been working with for a little while. Our manager, Bailey, well, we've got sort of a couple of managers, but Bailey is he spearheads both our management team and Octane Records. It's sort of his baby. And we've been really impressed actually with the dedication and the commitment to having our music released in a way that not only benefits them but really benefits us. Like, they really come with a mindset of a rising tide lifts all ships, and success for them is success. Oh, well, success for us is success for them. And
Excellent.
So we've felt really, really supported, and it's been a really wonderful working relationship. And then Wild Thing Records, I guess you'd say they are I suppose the premier progressive metal label in Australia. They've actually been pretty instrumental in bringing up some of Australia's sort of more recent, really wonderful acts, such as, Caligula's Horse and, a whole bunch of bands, actually. But just like Wild Thing really have their finger on the pulse of what's important when it comes to progressive rock and metal in Australia. And so it's really exciting for us to be working with them as well, because having that legitimacy and that backing sort of opens a lot of doors for us, and kind of legitimizes us in some very important ways. So it's we're really happy to be working with those guys.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good fit, to have a label that's specializing in your genre. So what are the plans for 2021? The album comes out in April, and a couple more videos, which is great, coming before that. So what are the plans for touring? Or I know everything's kind of like wait and see a little bit, but most bands are still booking those tours and booking all the shows and then trying to see which ones hold. What do you guys have planned for the rest of the year?
Linc?
Well, we as you said, we're booking the tour just to book the tour. Like, if it gets cancelled, it gets cancelled. If it gets postponed, we just do it later. But it seems that that's what everyone's doing. Yeah, you book it as the token. It's booked. This is what's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, then it gets moved to somewhere else.
Try again in a couple more months.
Yeah, when that first started happening, everyone was like, oh my god, but now it's the thing that's done. Everyone's doing it. So
you're just kind of a rotating thing of booking gigs and rebooking and rescheduling.
Yep. Yeah, and I think even if COVID isn't involved, there's always something. We just move it and do it again down the track. But yeah, so we've got a tour planned. The details are being hashed out literally right now. So
excellent.
Kalen and I were talking about last night as well, like for in this downtime and stuff, like we've been hitting the writing pretty hard, like harder than we did after the first album, because like we don't want to wait another 3 or 4 years before we put out another album after this. We've got such momentum, and our editing process, like Kalen was saying before, has really streamlined itself since Drew and Linc have joined the band. So we want to keep the momentum going and just keep creating things and using every opportunity we can, which COVID's and all this sort of touring schedule and all that sort of gives us a bit of that time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Have you guys considered doing any streaming shows or anything live for the fans that, from your studio there?
Yeah, I mean, I think most bands at the moment have considered those options, just because live music is pretty crap right now. And I really have a lot of respect for bands like Tesseract and that have done and put a lot of work into really high quality streaming shows and all that sort of stuff. I think it's amazing. The only thing is that the technical requirements to do something like that is actually quite detailed and quite extensive, and it's something that we would only want to do if we really had the technical setup, which we might be able to do, but it's very much a maybe, because you need a really solid connection. You need basically we need a studio booked out. We need
whole staff, whole crew, right?
Yeah, we need the whole staff basically. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, that's a lot. So we have been tossing around the idea, but here in Australia, there's a very good chance that the borders will be open between all the states soon enough that the tour will happen. And so I guess we don't feel as much pressure as probably bands in the States or other places would to resort to that kind of thing, because we do have other opportunities potentially coming up soon. That being said, we are in talks at the moment with a company who are putting on a quote unquote digital festival that might include something like that. So it's not off the cards, but there's nothing confirmed yet either, which is kind of a lame answer, but it's the only one we got.
No, it's great. It's great. Do you guys have any plans of coming to the US or touring in Europe?
We would absolutely love that. If those opportunities arise, we will absolutely be taking them. I guess for me personally, that is a goal of mine, is to get us to Europe, well, at least to Europe on this album cycle. America's a bit of a difficult one, just basically because in Europe, you can tour on a tourist visa, whereas in the US, you can't. So basically, just to get in the US to tour, it costs something like $1,400 US per head. And so if you've got 5 band members and a merch guy and a sound guy and maybe a tour manager, that's like, 15, 20 grand just to get in the country.
Yeah, you haven't even started anything. You're already out all that money. Exactly.
So it's not off the cards once again, but we would need to be in a much better. We would need to be a lot more sure of ourselves and a lot more sure of our fan base in the US before we made any kind of jump like that. Though I think my prediction is that this album cycle, obviously COVID allowing, that's the asterisk on all this stuff, we'll probably find ourselves going to hopefully Japan. And then if the stars align, we'll find ourselves going to Europe probably towards the end of the album cycle. And, unless a miracle happens or we get a really good offer or something like that. And I probably wouldn't see us in the US for, a year or two, something like that. So we'll see how we go. But it's obviously touring Europe and the US are our sort of number one priorities in the long term. We just can't say anything in the short term.
I don't know. When we came into COVID, it was right after this giant bushfires thing here in Australia. So we had sort of people like politicians and governments already scrambling with this sort of state-based disaster response, and then basically once COVID hit, just all of our states just locked down individually of each other. Basically, we're just lucky that everybody was just, I guess, already on their toes from having to deal with this crazy bushfire crisis.
I'd definitely say it was more of the state governments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was infinitely better than our federal government, and that's why I think we've gotten the results we have.
Yeah, they didn't have much. They didn't have much choice, though. The federal government just sort of said, hot potato. Here's a big virus.
It's really really cool that you guys get to play as a band, because that's just hard for anybody to do stateside, and I'm sure in parts of Europe. So yeah. I was speaking with Michael Schenker, and he was saying to leave Germany they had to go into quarantine for 14 days. And then when you come back 14 days, so you're 28 days.
Just a full month.
Just stuck somewhere trying to leave or come back. By the time you've traveled. So a lot of recordings and a lot of videos are being shot with everybody in their own studio. That's pretty cool that you guys get to still play and work and write as a band.
Absolutely, man. And it's I think we do kind of take it for granted a little bit, just because, like I said, we've been so lucky here in Queensland that life only changed for a few months before it got kind of back to normal. So I think it's important for us to hear these reminders that the rest of the world is not having as good a time, because we should probably be appreciating what we've got a little bit more. So, yeah.
For the Australian bands as well to sort of broaden their fan base and everything as well, because we can't have international bands here until the 2-week quarantine thing's gone, because a band coming to Australia, it's already expensive, but then having to spend 2 weeks when you get here where you could be touring in lockdown,
right.
It's not doable. So the opportunities for Australian bands to now replace that niche is just higher than ever.
Well, that could be to your advantage at some point then, correct?
Definitely, yeah.
Excellent. Well, hey, I just want to thank everybody for joining me on the phone call. And do you guys have anything you would like to add? Anything you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, just a really quick thank you. First of all, thanks for having us on. This is awesome. It's been really good to talk to you. I also just like to thank everyone that's been listening to the single and giving us such wonderful feedback. We've had nothing but just really, really positive responses since we released it. And, which is so nice because when you work so goddamn hard on a thing and it costs you your sleep and your sanity and all these kinds of things, actually putting it out and having a really wonderful response is so reassuring. It's so wonderful. So just want to say thank you to everyone. We're really, really excited to show you the rest of the album. Like we really do feel like we've stepped up our game in a big way since the first album. I really think there's going to be something for everyone on this new album. One thing I'll say is that I believe one of our strengths is that we aren't that band that writes the same song over and over. Like our songs do have very distinct and individual personalities from one another, even though they do sound like us. So I really feel like kind of if you're into heavy music at all, you'll probably find something on this album that might tickle you. So just, really excited for everyone to hear it. And thank you so much.
Give us a follow and a like because it's a digital age and it means a lot.
Thanks for joining me for Metal Express Radio Backstage. And we really look forward to the new album coming out. You guys sound great.
Appreciate that.